I, 44, male, until 6 weeks ago, thought I had a decent life with my wife Sarah, 38, female. We have been married for 14 years and have 2 kids, Jake, 12, male, and Emma, 9, female. I work as a structural engineer for a mid-sized firm, pulling in about $112,000 a year. Not Jeff Bezos money, but enough to keep us comfortable in our $475,000 house in a decent neighborhood with good schools. We have got 2 cars, both paid off, annual trips to Florida or the Outer Banks, and I've managed to sock away nearly $90,000 in college funds for the kids. I grew up poor as dirt in rural Pennsylvania. Dad worked 3 jobs and Mom cleaned houses to keep food on the table. Some of my earliest memories are of counting pennies with my mom at the kitchen table, trying to figure out if we could afford both electricity and heat that month. I was wearing hand-me-downs and working at the local grocery store by 14. I busted my ass through school, stayed up studying until 2 a.m., while other kids partied, landed a partial scholarship, and worked 2 jobs to cover the rest. I promised myself I would never struggle like my parents did, never have to choose between necessities. When I met Sarah at a friend's barbecue back in 2010, she seemed perfect, smart, pretty, ambitious. She had this way of laughing that made everyone want to be near her, like she was the sun, and we were all just planets in her orbit. She was working as a marketing coordinator for a local company, making about $65,000. We dated for 8 months before I proposed. Looking back, there were red flags I ignored, like how she coincidentally got more interested after seeing my new promotion, announced on LinkedIn, or how she would compare me to her ex who made less money but was so passionate about life, or how she would make these little comments about my clothes or my car not being the right image. But I was so damn proud to have this beautiful woman on my arm that I ignored all that. I thought I had hit the jackpot, the poor kid from nowhere, Pennsylvania, landing the golden girl. Fast forward to last month. I finished a major project 2 days ahead of schedule, a bridge retrofit that saved the county $1.8 million, and my boss let me take off early on a Wednesday. I thought I would surprise Sarah, maybe take her out for an impromptu lunch. Our anniversary was coming up, and I wanted to discuss planning a weekend getaway to that vineyard in Virginia she had been hinting about. I pulled into our driveway around 1:30 p.m. Sarah's white Lexus, last year's birthday present from me, was there, which was not unusual since she had started working from home 3 days a week after the company had made that change. As I walked toward the side door, I heard her voice coming from the patio. She was talking loudly, and I realized she was on a call with that therapist she had been seeing for the past year, Dr. Wilson or Wilkins or something. Sarah had claimed she needed therapy to deal with existential anxiety and unfulfilled creative potential, whatever the hell that meant. I supported it because, hey, mental health matters, right? $200 per session, twice a month, no questions asked. She had come back from these sessions looking refreshed, sometimes even initiating sex that night, which had become increasingly rare over the years. I thought the therapy was helping her, helping us. I was about to announce myself when I heard my name. Something made me stop and listen. Call it instinct. Or maybe it was the tone in her voice I had never heard before, contemptuous, almost sneering. "No, Dr. Wilcox, you are not getting it," Sarah was saying, her voice dripping with contempt. "I have never actually been physically attracted to Mike, not once in 14 years. He was just available and stable, a human ATM with a pulse." I felt like someone had punched me in the gut hard, like all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. My ears started ringing, and for a second I thought I might throw up right there in our carefully landscaped backyard. "Of course I faked it," she continued with a laugh. "Every single time. Do you think I would still be with him if the sex was that bad and I was not getting something out of it? The house, the cars, the vacations. Do you know how expensive private school would be if I had to pay for it myself? Do you know what kind of lifestyle I would have to give up?" She paused, probably listening to the therapist. "Look, he is convenient. He handles all the bills, fixes everything around the house, deals with the lawn, takes the garbage out. He is basically the help, but I do not have to pay him. Plus, he thinks I hung the moon, which is whatever. Pathetic, but useful." Another pause. I stood frozen, my hand gripping the gate so hard my knuckles turned white. "Leave him? Are you crazy? And give up this lifestyle? Do you know how hard it is to find a dependable provider these days? Most guys his age want to find themselves or start over with 25-year-olds. Mike worships the ground I walk on. It is boring as hell, but it pays the bills. I just need these sessions to vent so I do not lose my mind from the sheer tedium of being married to human beige paint. Human beige paint. That is what 14 years of working 50-hour weeks, of never missing a mortgage payment, of coaching Jake's soccer team even when I was exhausted, of planning surprise birthday parties and anniversary trips, of holding her hand through 2 difficult pregnancies. That is what it all amounted to. Beige fucking paint. I must have made a noise because suddenly Sarah appeared at the patio door. Our eyes met, and her expression, I will never forget it. Not shock or shame, just annoyed irritation like I had interrupted her while she was watching her favorite show. Then her face shifted into something calculated as she quickly ended her call. "Mike, what are you doing home so early?" she chirped, her voice suddenly honey-sweet. The same voice she had used with me for 14 fucking years. The voice I had thought was real. The voice I had fallen in love with. I just stood there, blood pounding in my ears. "How much did you hear?" she asked, her smile faltering slightly. "Enough," I said. "Do not bother explaining. I heard everything I needed to hear." I turned around, got in my car, and drove away with her calling after me. My entire life had just been revealed as a fucking sham, and all I knew was I needed to get far away from the woman who had been playing me for a fool since the day we met. I checked into a Holiday Inn about 30 minutes away and shut off my phone. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, just staring at the wall, trying to process what I just learned. 14 years of my life gone. A complete fabrication. Every anniversary dinner, every birthday celebration, every I love you, every intimate moment. All fake. All a performance put on by a woman who saw me as nothing more than a reliable paycheck. I kept replaying moments in my head. Our wedding day when she dabbed tears from her eyes during our vows. The night Jake was born, when she had squeezed my hand and told me she had never loved me more. Last Christmas when she had given me that watch I had been eyeing and said, "You deserve something special for being the best husband in the world." Had she been calculating even then, thinking about how that $400 watch was a good investment to keep her human ATM happy? The thought made me physically ill. Around midnight, I finally turned my phone back on. 27 missed calls from Sarah. 43 text messages ranging from, "You misunderstood," to, "Please come home," to, "You are overreacting." I bypassed all of them and called my buddy Dave. We have been friends since college, and he is the most level-headed guy I know. He picked up on the second ring despite the late hour. "Mike, everything okay?" "No," I managed to say, my voice cracking. "Everything is definitely not okay." He listened without interrupting as I spilled the whole ugly story, occasionally making sounds of disbelief or outrage. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Jesus Christ, Mike," he finally said. "I am so sorry, man. Do you want to crash at our place for a few days? Tina will not mind. Are you sure? I do not want to impose. Are you kidding me? Get your ass over here. No friend of mine is sitting alone in a hotel after that kind of bombshell." I accepted his offer and spent the next 3 nights in their guest room. Dave and Tina were amazing, giving me space when I needed it, but making sure I ate and occasionally pulling me into conversation to keep me from spiraling. Their kids, about the same age as mine, seemed to sense something was wrong with Uncle Mike and made me pictures to help you feel better. Dave hooked me up with his cousin Frank, who happens to be one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. Not cheap at $375 an hour, but as Frank put it when we met at his downtown office, "This is your life we are talking about." The difference between a good attorney and a great one could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Frank was in his late 50s with salt and pepper hair, and the kind of steady gaze that made you feel like he had seen it all and knew exactly how to handle it. He did not sugarcoat anything. "You are in for a rough ride," he told me after I had explained the situation. "But you have got one huge advantage. You know exactly what you are dealing with. Most guys walk into this blindsided." I went back to the house on Saturday, when I knew Sarah would be at her weekly yoga class, followed by brunch with her friend Melissa. I packed enough clothes for a couple of weeks, my important documents, and my grandfather's watch. The only thing of value I had that was not tied to Sarah. I did not leave a note. Let her wonder. The house felt different somehow, smaller, faker, like a movie set where nothing was actually functional. I looked at the photos on the walls, family vacations, holiday portraits, candid moments I had thought were genuine. Now they all seemed staged, props in Sarah's long-running performance. In our bedroom, I paused at her dresser where she kept her jewelry. Thousands of dollars worth of pieces I had saved up to buy her over the years. Anniversary diamonds, birthday pearls, just because sapphires. Each one representing months of extra hours, of skipped lunches, of money I could have put toward retirement but chose to spend on making her smile. I left them all where they were. I did not want anything that reminded me of her. The kids were at Sarah's parents' place for the weekend, which gave me time to figure out what to say to them. How do you explain to a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old that their entire family was built on a lie? I met them at a park the next day. Sarah had apparently told them I was working through some things, and they were confused, but not panicked. Jake, my serious boy, with his perpetually messy hair and thoughtful eyes, asked if we were getting divorced like his friend Tyler's parents. Emma, still young enough to believe that problems could be fixed with hugs and apologies, just wanted to know when I was coming home. I kept it simple. Mom and Dad are having some grown-up problems. We both love you very much, and none of this is your fault. Sometimes adults need to live apart to figure things out. Standard divorce crap, but what else could I say? Your mother has been pretending to love me for 14 years because she likes the lifestyle my paycheck provides. Yeah, that would go over well. Jake, perceptive as always, studied my face. But you are not coming back, are you? I could not lie to him. No, buddy, I do not think I am. Emma started crying then, big silent tears that broke what was left of my heart. I pulled them both into a hug, breathing in the scent of their shampoo, feeling the warmth of their small bodies against mine. This was real. Whatever Sarah had fabricated, my love for these kids was the truest thing in my life. I promise you will see me all the time, I told them fiercely. Nothing changes about how much I love you. Nothing. By Monday morning, Sarah realized I was not coming back anytime soon. That is when the real campaign began. First came the emotional texts. I did not mean any of that. I was just venting. It is therapy. I exaggerate to work through my feelings. When those got no response, the tone shifted. You are tearing apart our family over a misunderstanding. The kids are devastated. How could you be so selfish? When I did not respond to those either, she escalated. She showed up at my office, in tears, causing such a scene in the reception area that security had to escort her out. My boss, Tom, called me into his office afterward. Everything okay, Mike? He asked, clearly uncomfortable. Tom was old school, believed in keeping personal and professional lives separate. I gave him the abbreviated version. To his credit, he nodded and said, "Take whatever time you need. Just keep me in the loop." Then, in an unprecedented display of emotion, he added, "For what it is worth, my first wife pulled something similar. Best thing I ever did was walk away." Then Sarah started recruiting allies. She called my parents, telling them I'd misunderstood a therapy session and was throwing away our family over a simple misunderstanding. My mom called me concerned. "Sarah says you were having a midlife crisis," she said. "That you overheard something and took it completely out of context." "Did she tell you exactly what I overheard?" I asked. "Well, no, just that it was taken out of context. Ask her to repeat exactly what she said, word for word, and then call me back." Mom never called back on that topic. A few days later, my dad called instead. "Your mother and I are behind you 100%, he said gruffly. "Whatever you need." He did not elaborate, but I knew Sarah had finally told them what I had heard, and they had seen through her bullshit. Next came Sarah's friends. Melissa, her brunch buddy, cornered me at Starbucks, saying Sarah was absolutely devastated and not eating or sleeping. She made a mistake, Melissa insisted, her perfectly highlighted hair bobbing as she nodded emphatically. "People say things they do not mean in therapy all the time." "Really?" I replied. "People regularly admit to faking an entire 14-year relationship for financial security? That is a common therapy topic?" Melissa had the decency to look uncomfortable before mumbling something about hearing both sides and scurrying away. Her other friend Diane took a different approach. She called me at work, voice dripping with condescension. "I know men can be emotionally fragile when they feel their masculinity is threatened. But running away from your problems is so immature, Mike." I hung up on her. The most infuriating was when Sarah's brother Kevin called me. Kevin and I had always gotten along well. We played in the same fantasy football league and went fishing a couple times a year. I had helped him move into his new house last summer, spending a whole weekend carrying furniture and installing shelves. "Look, bro," he started, "I know Sarah can be high maintenance sometimes." "High maintenance?" I interrupted. She called me a human ATM with a pulse and admitted to faking every intimate moment of our entire marriage. "That is not high maintenance, Kevin. That is sociopathic." There was a long pause. "She said what?" he finally asked, his voice noticeably different. I repeated what I had heard word for word. "Jesus," he muttered. "She told us you overheard her complaining about you not helping enough around the house." "Yeah, well, ask her to quote exactly what I heard. See what she says." 2 days later, Kevin texted me, "I believe you. I am sorry." He has not spoken to Sarah since, from what I have heard. By my count, Sarah attempted to contact me through 78 different people over the span of 3 weeks. Friends, family, co-workers, our dentist, Emma's dance teacher, the guy who cuts our lawn, always with the same vague story about a misunderstanding, and me overreacting. The most bizarre was when Father Thomas from the church we attended on Christmas and Easter called me. We were not even members, but apparently Sarah had gone to him in spiritual distress over her broken marriage. "God forgives all, Michael," he intoned solemnly. "And so must we." "With all due respect, Father," I replied. "God may forgive, but he also believes in consequences for actions. Frank, my attorney, advised me to document everything, but not to engage. Every communication should go through me," he said. "She is trying to establish a narrative where you are unstable and impulsive. Do not give her ammunition." I took his advice and focused on finding a place to live. I ended up renting a 2-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from our house, close enough for the kids, far enough to avoid running into Sarah. It was in a decent complex with a pool and a small gym. Nothing fancy, but clean and safe. I furnished it minimally at first, just a couch, television, dining table, and beds from IKEA. The bare white walls and empty spaces matched how I felt inside, hollowed out, stripped down to essentials. The hardest part was establishing a new routine with the kids. We agreed through our attorneys on a temporary arrangement. They would stay with Sarah during the week because of school and with me on weekends and Wednesday nights. The first Wednesday night was awkward as hell. My apartment was barely furnished, just those basic pieces from IKEA and some kitchen essentials. Jake was sullen, answering every question with one word Emma kept asking when we were going home. "This is my home now," I told her gently. "And it is your home too whenever you are here. But all my stuff is at the other home," she pointed out. Kid logic in full effect. And Sparkles. Sparkles was her stuffed unicorn, practically threadbare from years of love. "We will get you some things for here," I promised. "Whatever you want, and we can bring Sparkles next time." We ordered pizza that night and watched a movie on my laptop because I had not set up the television yet. Both kids fell asleep on the couch, and I carried them to their beds, twin mattresses with brand new dinosaur sheets for Jake and unicorn sheets for Emma. As I tucked the blanket around Emma, she stirred slightly. "Daddy," she murmured sleepily. "Yes, sweetheart. Mom cries a lot now." I swallowed hard. "I am sorry to hear that. She says it is because you do not love us anymore." The manipulation was so blatant it took my breath away. "That is not true, Emma. I love you and Jake more than anything in the world. That will never ever change." She nodded, already drifting back to sleep. That is what I told her. By the third Wednesday, things were smoother. I decorated their rooms with posters and toys. We had established a ritual of making homemade pizza and watching a movie. Jake had thawed somewhat, actually telling me about a science project he was working on, a model of the solar system with proper scale distances, which was pretty impressive for a 12-year-old. Meanwhile, I was going through the motions at work, showing up, doing my job, going home to an empty apartment 4 nights a week. I started hitting the gym every day after work, partly to fill the time, partly because the physical exertion helped me sleep. I dropped about 15 pounds without really trying, a combination of stress and forgetting to eat. One night, about 6 weeks after D-Day, that is what I had started calling the day I overheard Sarah. I ran into my neighbor Brandon at the apartment complex gym. He was about my age, maybe a little older, with the kind of casual fitness that comes from regular workouts rather than obsession. We got to talking between sets, and it turned out he was also recently divorced. "It gets better," he told me as he spotted me on the bench press. "Not right away, but eventually. The key is to focus on rebuilding, not revenge." "I am not interested in revenge," I said, pushing through the last rep. "I just want out with minimal damage to my kids and my finances." "That is what I thought too," he replied with a knowing look. But then my ex tried to screw me on the house, and suddenly I was dreaming up all sorts of petty shit. Like I literally considered buying the house next door to hers just to paint it a color she hated. I laughed for what felt like the first time in weeks. We ended up grabbing a sparkling water afterward, and it was refreshing to talk to someone who had been through it and come out the other side. "The worst part," Brandon confided, "was realizing how much of myself I had given up during my marriage. I used to play guitar. Did you know that? In a band even. Nothing big, just local gigs. But Charlotte thought it was immature. So, I stopped. I have not picked up a guitar in 8 years." I nodded, realizing I had a similar story. I had loved photography in college, even had some work displayed in a student show, but Sarah had called it a cute hobby and suggested I focus on more practical pursuits. My camera had sat in a closet for years before disappearing altogether in one of Sarah's decluttering phases. The next day, I met with Frank to go over our strategy for the divorce proceedings. Sarah was asking for the house, primary custody, and $3,000 a month in child support, plus $2,500 in alimony. Frank just chuckled when he showed me her initial proposal. Standard opening position, he said. Aim for the stars, settle for the moon. We will counter with something equally unreasonable and eventually meet somewhere in the middle. What is our counter? I asked. We will ask for the house to be sold and proceed split, 50-50 custody, standard child support calculations based on income differential, and no alimony, since she is capable of supporting herself with her marketing job. It all sounded so clinical, dividing up 14 years of life into assets and schedules. There is one more thing, Frank added, looking uncomfortable. Sarah's attorney has suggested that you have been unstable since the separation. They are implying you might have some kind of mental break. What? That is bullshit. I know, he assured me, but they are laying groundwork. If they can paint you as emotionally unstable, it strengthens their case for primary custody and higher support payments. So, what do? Document everything. Every interaction with the kids, every exchange with Sarah, and I would recommend getting a psychological evaluation preemptively show you are of sound mind. I agreed, though the idea that I had to prove my sanity after what Sarah had done was infuriating. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about what Brandon had said about revenge. I did not want revenge, did I? But as I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting the faint water stains, 3, and cracks, 2, I could not help but think that Sarah was still largely getting away with it. Sure, our marriage was over, but she was living in our house, had the kids most of the time, and was positioning herself as the victim in all this. The worst part, she was trying to take even more from me through the divorce. After admitting she had married me for financial stability, she now wanted to bleed me dry legally. The audacity was staggering. That is when I realized it was not about revenge. It was about justice. 3 months into the separation, things took an unexpected turn. I was having dinner with the kids at my apartment, spaghetti and meatballs, one of the few meals I could reliably cook without disaster, when Jake asked if he could talk to me about something serious. Emma was watching television in the living room, so Jake and I stepped onto the small balcony. The October air was crisp, and Jake huddled in his hoodie, suddenly looking younger than his 12 years. "Dad," he said, looking nervous, "Mom has been saying weird stuff about you." My stomach dropped. "What kind of stuff?" "She said you abandoned us because you were having a midlife meltdown and that you might be unstable." He made air quotes around those words. "She told Grandma Liz that she is worried about us being alone with you because you might snap." I fought to keep my expression neutral, even as rage boiled inside me. Using our kids as pawns was a new low, even for Sarah. "What do you think?" I asked carefully. Jake shrugged, scuffing his sneaker against the concrete. "You seem the same to me, just sad sometimes." I hugged him, probably too tightly. "I am not unstable, Jake. I am going through a tough time, but I would never, ever do anything to hurt you or Emma. You know that, right?" He nodded against my chest. "I know. That is why it seemed weird when Mom said that stuff." "Has she said anything else?" Jake hesitated, pulling away slightly. "She keeps saying you are trying to punish her by taking all her money, that we might have to move to a smaller house or change schools because you are being vindictive." Jesus Christ, she was poisoning my kids against me while playing the victim. "She cries a lot," Jake continued, looking uncomfortable. "Like, a lot, especially when she knows we can see her. But then sometimes I will walk past her room and she is just on her phone, totally fine. It is weird. Smart kid. He was picking up on the performance. And she keeps asking questions about you, like if you seem angry, or if you say bad things about her, or if you have any lady friends coming over." He made a disgusted face at the last part. "I do not," I assured him, "and I do not say bad things about your mom to you guys because that would not be right." "I know," Jake said. "That is what I told her." I ruffled his hair, my mind racing. "Thanks for telling me, buddy. You did the right thing." The next day, I called Frank and told him what Jake had shared. "Parental alienation," he said grimly. "It is unfortunately common, but it is also something judges take very seriously. If we can document this pattern, it could significantly impact custody arrangements. How do we document it? I am not going to ask my kid to record his mother. No, of course not, but we can request a guardian ad litem, essentially an advocate appointed by the court to represent your children's interests. They will interview both kids, both parents, teachers, maybe even friends. It felt like escalating a war, but Sarah had fired the first shot at our children. I agreed to Frank's suggestion. 2 weeks later, we had our first court hearing. It was just a preliminary status conference, but Sarah showed up looking like she was auditioning for the role of tragic widow. All in black, eyes downcast, dabbing occasionally at non-existent tears. Her attorney, Patricia Holden, was a shark in a $2,000 suit, her red-soled shoes clicking aggressively as she approached the bench. Patricia painted me as a man having a midlife crisis who had abandoned his family over a misinterpreted private therapy conversation. She emphasized Sarah's role as the primary caregiver, conveniently forgetting the years I had done school drop-offs, doctor appointments, and sick days, because her job was not as flexible. When my turn came, Frank quietly but firmly laid out the facts. I had overheard my wife explicitly stating she had never been attracted to me and had married me for financial security. She had admitted to faking every intimate moment of our 14-year marriage. And now she was attempting to alienate my children from me by suggesting I was mentally unstable. Furthermore, Frank continued, his voice steady, we have received information that Mrs. Campbell has been telling the children that their father is vindictively trying to impoverish them when in fact he has continued to pay the mortgage and all household expenses during this separation period, in addition to providing child support. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, looked over at Sarah, who was now genuinely crying. Mrs. Campbell, are these allegations accurate? She asked. Patricia jumped in. Your Honor, my client was engaged in a private therapeutic conversation where venting and hyperbole are common. I asked Mrs. Campbell, the judge interrupted, fixing Patricia with a steely gaze. Sarah wiped her eyes. I may have said some things in therapy that were exaggerated. I was frustrated that day. Everyone says things they do not mean sometimes. Did you or did you not tell your children that their father might be unstable, and that they should be concerned about being alone with him? Sarah hesitated just a fraction too long. I might have expressed concerns about his emotional state after he suddenly left us, she admitted, but only because I was worried about him. The judge's expression made it clear she was not buying it. I'm appointing a guardian ad litem for the minor children, she announced, and both parties are hereby ordered not to disparage the other parent to the children or in the children's presence. Violations will be taken very seriously by this court. As we left the courtroom, I caught Sarah giving me a look of pure hatred. The mask had finally slipped completely. The guardian ad litem, a retired family court attorney named Michael Brennan, was thorough and no nonsense. He interviewed Jake and Emma separately, then Sarah and me, then the kids' teachers and school counselor. Mr. Brennan was in his 60s with kind eyes but a poker face that gave nothing away. During my interview, he asked pointed questions about my relationship with the kids, my work schedule, my plans for housing and schooling. I answered everything honestly, including the difficult parts. Yes, I have been depressed, I admitted. Finding out your entire marriage was a lie will do that to you, but I have been seeing a therapist and I am focused on being there for my kids. He nodded, making notes. And how would you describe your co-parenting relationship with Sarah? Strained, I said. I try to keep communication focused on the kids, but she often brings up personal matters or makes accusations. He requested access to Sarah's therapy records. Her attorney fought this vigorously, claiming therapist-client privilege. But Frank argued successfully that Sarah herself had put those conversations at issue by claiming I had misinterpreted what I had overheard. The judge agreed and ordered a limited release of records related specifically to discussions about me and our marriage. 2 weeks later, Frank called me, sounding more animated than I had ever heard him. We got the therapy records, he said. Mike, you are not going to believe this. Try me, I replied. Sarah has been consistently describing you as a meal ticket for years. There are dozens of sessions where she complained about being trapped in a marriage with someone she found physically repulsive but financially useful. I felt sick, but also vindicated, so I did not misinterpret anything. Not only that, Frank continued, but she discussed strategies with her therapist for maximizing what she could get in a potential divorce. That was about 2 years ago, long before you overheard anything. She was planning this. It looks that way. She was waiting for the kids to be a little older. And get this. She has been having an affair with her gym trainer for the past year. That explained the sudden interest in fitness and the 3 times weekly personal training sessions I had been paying for. Jason, the trainer, a muscle-bound guy in his early 30s, who always had a too-friendly smile for Sarah when I had occasionally joined her at the gym. Her therapist actually cautioned her about the affair, Frank added, not on moral grounds, but because it could affect divorce proceedings if discovered. I laughed bitterly. So even her therapist was helping her strategize? Not exactly ethical practice, Frank agreed, but extremely helpful for us. The next day, Michael Brennan submitted his report to the court. His recommendation: immediate 50-50 custody with me having primary decision-making authority for education and healthcare. He cited concerning patterns of manipulation and dishonesty from Sarah, and noted that both children had independently expressed feeling more relaxed and normal at my apartment than at the family home where they felt pressured to take care of Mom's feelings. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing based on Brennan's report. This time Sarah could not maintain the grieving wife act. She showed up looking furious, designer sunglasses hiding what I suspected were rage-filled eyes. She had lost weight and her usual perfect appearance seemed forced, her expensive blouse slightly wrinkled. The judge did not mince words. After reviewing Brennan's report and the therapy records, she lambasted Sarah for egregious manipulation and using the children as emotional pawns. She ordered immediate implementation of Brennan's custody recommendation and scheduled a full financial hearing for the following month. As we left the courtroom, Sarah hissed at me. "You have ruined everything. I hope you are happy." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but pity. "I did not ruin anything, Sarah. You did that all by yourself." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You think you have won? This is not over." "Actually, it is," I replied calmly. "It was over the moment I heard the truth." 6 months after D-Day, the final divorce decree came through. The financial settlement was far from what Sarah had hoped for. The house was to be sold with proceeds split equally. 50-50 physical custody remained in place. Child support was calculated based strictly on income differential, which meant I paid $870 per month, a far cry from the $3,000 she demanded. No alimony whatsoever, as the judge cited Sarah's demonstrated bad faith throughout the marriage. My retirement accounts remained solely mine, a significant victory since I had accumulated nearly $280,000 over my career. Sarah was ordered to pay $15,000 toward my legal fees. But the real revenge was not financial. It was watching Sarah's carefully constructed world collapse around her. Her therapist, Dr. Wilcox, faced an ethics investigation after Frank sent copies of the therapy records to the state licensing board. Jason, her trainer boyfriend, dumped her when he realized she was not getting the financial windfall she had promised. Most devastating for Sarah was losing her carefully cultivated supermom image in our community. When the house finally sold in a down market, Sarah could barely afford a small condo on the edge of our school district. Meanwhile, I'd been promoted to senior project manager, bought a nice townhouse, and started dating Rachel, a divorced architect, from work. Sarah showed up at my door one evening looking tired and defeated, begging for financial help. I simply said, "This is not about revenge, Sarah. It is about consequences. You made thousands of choices every day for 14 years. That is not a mistake. That is a strategy." The most satisfying moment came at back-to-school night when Jake's teacher praised my help with his math skills, causing Sarah's fake smile to freeze on her face as other parents looked at me with approval. It was not the money or the judgment that constituted my revenge. It was regaining my self-respect and watching Sarah learn that exploitation has its limits.